வணக்கம். உங்கள் அனைவரையும்
Vaheesan
JOC
screen அப்புறமா ஷேர் பண்ணிக்கலாம்.
அந்த ஆப்ஷன் வருது எனக்கு.
நான் இப்ப க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிடுறேன்.
ப்ளீஸ். யா, தேங்க் யூ.
எஸ் சார், லைவ் பண்ணிடுச்சு, ரெக்கார்டிங் ஸ்டார்ட் பண்ணிடுச்சு.
கொஞ்சம் எடிட் பண்ணுங்க இதெல்லாம். வணக்கம். உங்கள் அனைவரையும் இந்த JOC ஸ்டடி சர்க்கிள் பெகி மோகனுடைய புத்தகத்தை ஃபாதர்ஸ் டங் மதர்லேண்ட் த பர்த் ஆஃப் லாங்குவேஜ் இன் சவுத் ஏஷியா என்ற புத்தகத்தை படித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கிறோம். இப்பொழுது 7வது அத்தியாயத்தை வாசீகரன் இப்பொழுது நம்மிடையே படிக்க இருக்கிறார். இந்த படிப்பில் மிக முக்கியமாக நாம் கவனிக்க வேண்டியது ஆராய்ச்சி பூர்வமாக உண்மையை தேடுதல் என்பதுதான். நம்மால் முடிந்த வரைக்கும் அகழ்வாய்வு, வரலாறு, மொழியியல் என்ற பல்வேறு துறைகளில் நாம் ஆராய்ந்து உண்மையை கண்டறிகிறோம். அந்த வகையிலே இந்த புத்தகம் ஒரு மிக புகழ்பெற்ற மொழியியலாளருடைய புத்தகம். அதை நாம் படிக்கிறோம். நீங்கள் இதை காணொலியில் வாயிலாக பார்த்து கொண்டிருந்தாலும் இதுவரை படித்த அத்தியாயங்களை நீங்கள் பார்க்காவிட்டால் திரும்பி போய் 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 அனைத்தையும் தொடர்ந்து படித்துக்கொண்டு பார்த்து கொண்டு வந்தால் இதை ஒரு முழுமையாக புரியும். இந்த அளவிலே உங்களை அனைவரையும் அன்போடு வரவேற்று, உங்களில் மிகவும் அதிகமாக இந்த ஜேர்னி ஆஃப் சிவிலைசேஷன் துறையில் ஆர்வம் இருந்தால் இந்த வாட்ஸ்அப் குழுமத்தில் நீங்கள் இணையுங்கள். உங்களுக்கு தெரிந்தவர்கள் இருந்தாலும் நீங்கள் அவர்களிடம் சொல்லி இணைய வையுங்கள். இத்தோடு மீண்டும் உங்களை வரவேற்பதில் மகிழ்ச்சி அடைகிறேன். வணக்கம்.
வரவேற்புரைக்கு மிக்க நன்றி ஐயா. Let me introduce our speaker today. Mr. Vaheesan is a software architect with an undergraduate degree in computer science. He is born and raised in Sri Lanka. He migrated to Canada after the Civil War, bringing with him a global perspective shaped by resilience and curiosity. His interests span technology, linguistics, culture, and history, and he enjoys exploring how these fields intersect to drive innovation and deepen human understanding. So with this, let me welcome Mr. Vaheesan to speak about the 7th chapter of this book, Father Tongue and Motherland. He is also excited to talk about the birth of Sinhalese language, which is his own research, which has been done over the years. So let's hear what Vaheesan is ready to tell us. Please, Vaheesan.
Thank you, Bama. Thank you, everyone, for joining the session. Vanakkam ellarukkum. Warm welcome. Let me share my screen. Go full screen. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, sorry, is that a question?
No question.
Okay.
No, please go ahead.
Okay, let me get started. So today we are here to discuss the 7th chapter of the book. It's titled Chimera on the Northern Rim. It's such a coincidence that I got assigned to this one. The original plan was for me to do the chapter 1, but due to unforeseen reasons, I had to swap that with another member of the team. And here we are to discuss the Nepalese language, and it nicely dovetails into the second part of my discussion about the Sinhalese language, which also has some ties to the Magadhan Empire where Buddhism came. So I'm looking forward to that part of the presentation as well. On this one, just to give an idea on why the title was named this way, is because it comes from the mythological name that was given to a Greek character here, which has 3 genetic origins. And in this particular chapter, as we will see further, there are 3 language features that the author is finding peculiarly present in the Nepalese language. And hence, I guess she has decided to give this name to the chapter. So it's a composite organism with multiple genetic diversity. So a quick disclaimer, there is a bit of an AI in my presentation, not a lot, but to some extent, yes. So please take that with a grain of salt. There could have been some hallucinations. I didn't have time to fact check all of them. I have tried my best to go over them and try to make sense of it. But if you find any errors, please feel free to correct me later on in the chat, and I'll be happy to make changes to the presentation. This is one of the favorite poems that I have here. Kalla Appalayum, Karada Appalayum, Ella Appalayum Enade. So please bear with me if I have made any mistakes. I am not a linguist expert, or I'm very new to the domain. My training is in computer science, but I do have a lot of interest in this space, and hence I have decided to pick up this book and contribute here. So bear with me if I have made any mistakes in the presentations. Here's an overview of the book itself and what we are going to do today. So we have seen up to chapter 6, and today we are on chapter 7, which is about the Nepali language. And we can largely divide the chapter into 3 sections. And in the introduction, the author gives us how she is comparing the language to Hindi and Bengali. There's a bit of a geographical, political history as well. And then she goes into the depths of Newari language, which is a sort of an Aboriginal language of the land. And the main analysis comes in terms of 3 language features or historical language comparison features: numerical classifiers, gender, and ergativity. We have seen all of these 3 features in other chapters as well, and we will be taking the same lenses for analyzing this language as well. And then she concludes with her remarks on how all these languages could have influenced the Nepali language. So a quick recap of the definitions. This is an informal definition. Again, I'm not a linguist. So these definitions could be different from an academic standpoint. But before the definitions, the hypothesis for the book is a dominant farming group or a majority male-oriented group migrates into an inhabited area with aboriginals settling among the local peoples. So over time, they intermarry with local women, leading to a population growth, settled communities, and emergence of a new mixed language shaped by both the groups. So that's the primary thesis of the book, in my understanding. And we are going to see how that is going to play with the Nepali language. And numerical classifier is something that is attached to the noun most of the time, where noun or the numbers, number markers, which is only found in certain types of languages. And similarly, gender is another feature that we can find in languages that have grammatical gender. There is a distinguishing factor, which I also learned recently. Grammatical gender is different from natural gender. Natural gender is what we normally think of, animate and inanimate objects, things that have life, things that don't have life. That's the sort of understanding that everyone gets. But in some languages like French, we have grammatical gender where even inanimate objects have gender. So that's the notion of gender. And then ergativity is a deeper syntactical grammar type of marker or feature, This only happens in certain languages, especially in the tenses. And we will also see how that plays in the Nepali language. So I won't spend too much time. I'm crushed for time, so I'll quickly move on. So the author begins the chapter by comparing her familiarity with the Bhojpuri background that she has and Hindi, and she naturally inclines to think that Nepali is closer to Hindi. And she also finds some Magadhan influence because she is able to recognize some of the Magadhan features in the language. But then she is surprised by the fact that the numerical classifier being found in the Nepali language, which is not a feature in the other languages that she is thinking of, and which may have, especially Hindi. And she's wondering where this could have come into. And she goes on a deep exploration about this one. I'm not going to read the slides, but I will highlight some of the points here. And if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me or mark your questions down and we can come back to that later. So in essence, what she says is that the gender and ergativity in Nepali grammar are not found in Magadhan languages. And this suggests that Nepali is not purely Magadhan. But from a vocabulary standpoint, she thinks that Nepali is very close to Hindi. So she's a bit puzzled. So that's why she goes on this exploration. So what is strange is that grammatical gender and numerical classifiers are normally not found in the same language. Grammatical gender and numerical classifiers have a largely complementary distribution in the languages of the world. So she finds that Nepali has all three of them, going back to the chimera animal Greek mythology character. These three features are suddenly found in this language, and she's excited to explore. And Nepali is one of those rare cross-linguistically complex systems with numerical classifiers, grammatical gender, and ergativity. So she goes on to explore further on this aspect. So you can see I will be developing on the diagram on the right because there are many languages brought in the chapter, and it's a bit confusing. So I thought to put them diagrammatically so that you can see where things fit overall in the big picture. So I have given notations for the three markers, gender, ergativity, and numerical classifier, and green means it is present in the language. So numerical classifier is present slightly in the Magadhan language, but it's pretty dominant. So let's find out how that develops. So let's move on. So geographical and political history of the landscape. There is a group called Khasas who have migrated into the Nepali area from Uttarakhand. As you can see here, it's further northwest. So the thinking is that they could have brought more of a Indo-Aryan language with them, while the Nepali indigenous people might have had their own language. So there are various facts mentioned here. I won't go over all of them, but what you can see here is that there is multiple migrations and mixture happening in this space through various time points in history. So Gorkhali language is the one that has now become to be known as Nepali, and that is after the Gorkha Empire. And the original founders of the land are not even mentioned in this slide, or people who lived there originally is not mentioned in this slide. But from a migration standpoint, the first migration that she's talking about in this chapter are the Khasas, who belong to the Indo-Aryan language family migrating into the space. So this is how it looks like. So we have Magadhan and Bengali that was spoken about in the beginning of the chapter, but now she is bringing in Kumaoni, pardon my butchering of the pronunciations here. Garhwali is another language that the migrants might have spoken, and they are coming in about 500 years ago as Khazas into the Nepali area. And also she mentioned about the 18th century Gorkhali migration, which is a later migration that happens. That basically says how that name has been adopted as Nepali now. That one doesn't seem to have any role in the development of the language, but she just mentioned that as a passing statement. Okay, so now going deep into the analysis part, starting with numerical classifiers. So as I mentioned, there were earlier inhabitants, likely Tibeto-Burman speaking tribal groups before the Khasa settlers came in. And the Tibetan or the northern Nepal languages don't seem to have numerical classifiers. But interestingly, there is one language called Newari that has this feature. So that interests her even more, because if this feature has come from Tibetan Burma background, how come the other sister languages that she calls don't have this marker, but only Newari has that? So if you see this diagram again, this is the one that we are talking about. And this Newari language has various dialects as well. And along with that, there is another language called Meche. We will come back to that one later in the slide. And Kiranti, which also has a slight variation or a lighter version of a numerical classifier. So, but however, belonging to the same family, there are some other sister languages in another region, probably eastern, further east, I guess, that don't exhibit the same characteristic. So this is much more interesting. She's determined to find out how this could have happened. So we have three sets of languages in play. We have Newari coming in to see how that is contributing to Nepal. We have the Khasas coming in, and she also spoke about the Bengali Magadhan origin in the earlier beginning of the chapter. Also, another passing statement or passing paragraph that she mentions about in the chapter is about the Malla dynasty, about 13th century. Those who ruled that area patronized mightily another Magadhan language. So again, you could see like there are three moving parts in here, and we will see how this is all coming into place when it comes to the Nepali language when she investigates more on the feature sets. So again, the question is why Newari is so different. So that's what she is now going to explore. And she finds the answer in Kazuyuki's paper in that. So this is also something that she lightly touched upon in the chapter, where according to him, though we find a numerical classifier in Newari, but in the later stages around 1115, what she notices is that the literature is being subtle about it, or it's not being prominent about it. And for that, she thinks that it could have been the Maithili Brahmins coming into the space. So what she says is that inherently the Newari language might have had the numerical classifier built into it or baked into it. But then one of the migrants that came in, because of their influence and how they encouraged the Maithili Brahmins to be in the space, it might have downplayed the numerical classifier's importance or prominence in the language. So she mentions about that. And then while exploring further, she finds that there is another language in the region called Meishe, which is very much linked to the Assamese language Bodo, that has a very strong numerical classifier sense of feature in the language. So her thinking is that this is the undercurrent that has impacted both Newari and Assamese language. So now she has found the seed where this whole thing is coming to be. So from Meishe, it might have gone to Assam, where or the other way around. There is a close relationship between these two languages, and same way that the same language could have influenced Newari. So that's her understanding on the numerical classifier part. Then she moves on to gender. In gender, as you can see, gender is only present in the Indo-Aryan languages. This one is quite straightforward because of the migration that we spoke about in the beginning of the chapter, the Khazars. It's quite evident that gender is present in that one. And it could have gotten into Nepali from that language. So now we have gotten two features identified: the numerical classifier coming from Newari, and the Khazars bringing in the gender. Then the third part is the ergativity. So gender again, I mean, I'm not reading the slides. I guess the intention of the review is not to go into the details of it, and I'm also not going into the examples of the language variations or the sentences that she has brought up, but to get the overall picture of where this is all coming to be. So the gender system, however, one thing that she notes is that the gender system is a bit different from what has been in the Khaza language. So she says that the full grammatical gender in early Khaza may have reduced natural gender in Nepali. So what she says is that it's more of an influence, and also she doesn't find the gender in some other variants, varieties spoken around the area. So it's more of a half-baked solution that has been coming into Nepali with willingness or without willingness. So here is a so it's influenced. Yeah, so we also have Newari influence, and then okay, this is the key part of her argument. Nepali made a linguistic compromise. It developed a classifier language while maintaining restricted natural gender system. Remember, she said that these two are complementary characteristics, and this is her argument there. Because how do you find both numerical classifiers and gender in one language? Because in all other languages, they are complementary. So here she is coming to the understanding that it's a compromise. Yes, it's a heavy loaded feature for a language to have, and hence they are making a compromise on the gender and leaning towards the natural gender, still incorporating some of the gender factors. ergativity is the third feature that is being explored in the chapter. So it's easy to see that it would mirror Hindi, but because she wants to dig further into the language, she finds that it's not the ergativity from Hindi that has come into Nepali, but it's the ergativity from Newari that has slipped in. So, so overall, Nepali is different. Ergativity is not fully tense. It's split, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So Nepali is neither fully ergative or nor simple split ergative language. The subject nouns are inanimate. The language behaves ergatively. Otherwise, ergative or accusative alignment does not clearly apply. So here again, it's sort of in the middle, but it's there. So this raises the question, what is the source of Nepali's unusual ergativity? And that's where she finds it to come from the Newari language and not the Indo-Aryan languages. It resembles full ergativity, northern languages. Yeah, so it has a mixture of both types of languages. So Nepali is not the only Indo-Aryan language influenced by a Tibeto-Burman substratum to develop ergativity. She also says that the same thing about Assamese language as well. They also have the same ergative pattern across the tenses. I think that's pretty much it on the analysis part. So in conclusion, what we have is both Assamese and Bodo share the same kind of ergativity found in Nepali and Newari. The verbs agree with the subject regardless of ergative marking and tense place. So in essence, what she has come to say is that the language features are a blend of mix, and it has various origins, and the substratum language, the Newari being the Tibeto-Burman one, is still holding on to some of its attributes, whereas other features in the language has come from other sources and other influences. I guess that's pretty much it. I don't want to read the sentences. The slides are here. I'll take a pause here and take questions before I go to the second chapter of my presentation. Is that okay?
That'll be fine. We'll open it up for questions. Any comments or questions?
Oh, I have one. So, like, I gone through the book actually, and then she talks about the causes, right, in the 17th century,
Yeah.
and the Tibetan Burmese language is mixed in the 1500, and then 1300 is Magadhan languages, correct? I mean, that kind of classification she's giving, and then she wants to understand how far we can go in terms of mixing the languages. The question is, I'm not clear, and then she stops there, and after that, she doesn't go beyond that.
You're not alone. The reason for me to come up with this diagram is to really picturize what's really going on, because it's a bit of a jumble, I understand. And there are multiple languages multiple language features being talked about, and the families are different. Some of them have this, some of them don't have it. It's not a clear-cut separation sometimes. It's halfway through. So how do you figure this all out? I guess the real answer is there is no yes or no conclusion as such. I guess the whole thesis is like that, if I'm not mistaken. It basically gives you the idea that there is no right or wrong, clear-cut separation, black or white answer when it comes to the progression or the evolution of a language. You have to take multiple factors in effect, and there are multiple influences. And over time, it just becomes an hybrid, or to use her own analogy, a Trimisu bear. However, there is always a substratum language at the root of it. I guess that's the essence of the, and if you were to really be picky on the timelines, like she jumps between like before Christ and AD time periods here and there, which I also found bizarre. So understandable, but I guess the essence is something that we can accept.
Yeah, thank you. That's correct. And then, so the way you have put it is very nice. I mean, I was trying to figure out the things were not good, but I think programmatically you have put some that the diamond circle.
Yeah.
That was very clear, and then the slide is going to help to understand further. Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Okay.
Other questions?
Okay. So
Sri-
there's no.
Sri
sorry.
has a question. Go ahead, Sri.
Good evening, all. No, I just have because in every chapter she mentions about a language and then she says a substratum language, and that is what she's proving in every chapter. So for this Nepali, can you clearly say what is the substratum language she's
Nivari.
mentioning?
Nivari.
Oh,
This one?
Nivari.
Yeah.
Okay. Because in the 5th chapter, as I read, she's mentioning about these numerical classifiers in Assami language, but she's arguing that it hasn't come from it. She's saying Munda is a substratum for those numerical classifiers.
She
So
hasn't
that's
brought
why.
Munda in this chapter at all. So if you want to bring that in, that'll add another mixture for sure.
Okay, so for I think for the she's taking it from northwest, south, and last chapter was about south. So like
Yes.
every corner of the country, I think she's taking it out. So
Yeah.
that is what I can understand. Maybe the last chapter will be a put together of all the puzzle pieces. Thank you.
Probably.
There's a question from Naga saying, does Tamil have numerical classifiers? I think Sri dealt with it in her presentation. Maybe she could comment on it.
Sure.
No, numerical classifiers are not present in Tamil. What does this numerical classifier means? Along with a number, you should have a word attached to it. We say oru pencil, oru nabar. But when it comes to the other languages, along with the number, they'll have a different word for each object. So if it's coming for example in one of the languages, she's mentioning like in Munda language, when it comes for a person, you have to mention then you will mention John for a person. If it's going to be a cow or an animal, you will have a different word. So that is called numerical classifier. And in short, no, Tamil doesn't have numerical classifiers.
So the number ondru and oru becomes a sort of an adjective of the noun it describes. This is an add-on to this, right? The Munda language expresses this in great amount, correct, Sri?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah.
Does Hindi have numerical classifiers?
No, numerical classifiers are not present in Hindi.
And they're not present in Sanskrit either, correct?
Yes, yes. They're not present in Sanskrit also. So that is where she's arguing that numerical classifiers have come to Magadhan language, and she's arguing that they are not the Indo-Aryan features, but though Bhojpuri have been classified as Indo-Aryan, they don't have these features, but still they have the numerical classifiers which have come from the Munda. Though Munda
Okay.
has been classified as the Austro-Asiatic language.
Correct.
Right.
I remember that. Yes. So she
So
says
the
that classification is not exactly right. If you were
Yes,
to look,
yes.
look
She's
particularly
saying
from a
it's
numerical
not,
classifier perspective.
yeah, she's saying like you cannot classify Munda to be pure Austro-Asiatic. That is her full argument in that whole chapter.
So everything is a blend of everything else. Okay.
Yes.
To
And
some
we will see how that is the case in my next presentation as well. So
Yeah, that is unique about your chapter, Vahis, where so long we've been dealing with mixtures of two. Now we are dealing with mixture of three, right?
right. Okay.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, let's move on in the interest of time. So I tried to come up with a creative title for my second part. Because of the Trimisu bear, I thought I'll pull the name Tapra Brain from ancient Greek. That's the name given to Sri Lanka in the old literature. So we will see how Sinhalese is fitting into this thesis. There's a lot of text here. Again, I will try not to read the text, but speak to the diagram. If you have further questions, you can reach out to me on the chat, or you can ask after the presentation here. So what we find is that I didn't title the diagram correctly, and that's a limitation I have on the diagram. I wanted to separate the ethnicity part and the linguistic part, but I couldn't highlight it on the diagram, but I will speak to that. So what we have in Sri Lanka are two languages, Tamil and Sinhala. And I'm going to primarily focus on the Sinhala language here, which is a majority language in Sri Lanka, and it has a mythological origin as well as a linguistic origin. So we will go into that in a little bit. It also has some relationship to Maldivian language, Divehi. They are very close. There is one slide dedicated to that. But we also find other linguistic influences in this language, particularly being Hela or Elu, as they call it, being the Proto-Sinhala language. And historically speaking, as we go back in history, in the Stone Ages, Iron Ages period, we don't have much evidence on what the language that they spoke, but we definitely know there have been multiple tribal groups, and one of them called Vedda or Vadda, people are still living in Sri Lanka. They are a minority, like 0.8%. They only live in the jungles. It's interestingly, I will just throw this as well. Genetically, these people have very close affiliation to the Adivasi population in India, as well as the Australian Aboriginals. So there are some papers reference. I don't know if I quoted them here later on in the references section, but you can look it up. Genetically, they have affiliations to this. So from an ethnic perspective, they kind of fall in a completely isolated bucket. And the Sinhalese and the Tamils have a distant relationship with the Veda genetic mixing. That shows that there could have been two or more ethnic people or tribal groups living in Sri Lanka, and they could have mixed with different migrants and had this language variation. The Veda people currently speak a variation of Sinhala. What they originally spoke is not known because the population has died and we don't have any literary evidence or any other archaeological evidence from them. But there has been comparisons to their language and Elu or Hela, the older Proto-Sinhala language, and they have found a lot of similarity. So an interesting paper that I found recently is this particular one that I have quoted here, where he says, Dharmadasa, he says that the Aboriginal language got creolized. So it sort of fits into the narration that Peggy Mohan brings in here. So there could have been multiple tribes and a migration, one or two migrations happened, and a mixture happened. And one of those mixtures survived and became Elu or Hela, and the other one probably didn't mix well, that they stuck with their own language and became the Tamil version in Sri Lanka. So as you could see here, I have put Yaka and Naga here because they only have literal evidence. There is no ethnic group that we could identify or a tribal group that we could identify as Nagas or Yakas in Sri Lanka. But Vedas are still present. Like I said, they pretty much live in the language areas. Forest areas. However, I need to mention that there are inscriptions that mention the word Naga. Even in India, there is, I think one of the inscriptions has the notion of Naga. So Yaka is something is present in the worshipping of Veda people. So they claim to have a demon worshipping method, and in that they mention about Nayaku. So this is, I don't know if we can really classify them as a separate ethnic people. They could have been separate clans, tribal groups, but the only evidence that we currently have is the Vedas. But what's the relationship between the Veda people and Elu or Damila is unclear. That's why I've put this gray box around it. I don't know if you can see that color there, but it's a gray area. That's what I meant to show there. We definitely know that Elu and the current speaking single language by the Vedas have some relationship, but there is no relationship to Damila or Tamil spoken there. So the theory goes that Elu is a Creole that got developed with the native people, the inhabitants, and later became the Sinhala after the influence from Prakrit and Pali, and also Sanskrit later on with the Mahayana Buddhism influence. On the other hand, Damila is mentioned in Sinhalese or Prakrit inscriptions as a group or another tribal group that lived around the same area. So they have been contemporaries, but we don't know exactly the Proto-Tamil language from an inscriptions perspective. But archaeologically now they have found around 700 BCE time period. We have pottery evidence for Tamili or the Tamil Brahmi type markings on the potsheds. So definitely these two have been contemporaries. in the island. And the Damila people might have had more influence from South India and the Tamil Dravidian migrations. So you find the Naga being the Nagadeepa in the northern part of close to Jaffna. That's also mentioned in Manimekalai. So this is all the Tamilian origins along the coastal lines. And the interiors have been with the Elu or Hela people of Sinhala, but they have been contemporaries from a genetic standpoint, but they have no relationship or of a distant relationship with the Vadas. That's something. So in summary, we have 3 ethnic groups and 2 languages that are currently present in Sri Lanka. So let's move on. This is to speak about the later influences. So beyond the Hela, the old Sinhala part, when it comes to the Tamil influence on the Sinhala language, it has been at multiple waves. That's what I wanted to highlight here. So the original could have been the Proto-Dravidian inhabitants of the island because they belong to the AASI gene group. Then it could have been the megalithics who have, so we have, what do you call, the urn burials found in Sri Lanka as well. So there is a match between ancient Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka. So with that Dravidian culture could have been there. And then in the later centuries, we have Chola invasion and Vijayanagara Sanskrit influence. All of that has happened. Arya Chakravarti being the northern part of Sri Lankan dynasty. So there are waves of migrations / invasions happened in the island, and that also had influence on the Sinhalese language. So this is something that I found on the grammar book on Sinhala, which says that the words that are in Sinhala could be classified into 3 classes. One is purely native Elu words and Pali and Sanskrit words. And they don't speak about Tamil here, but later on, after the 13th century, we have had a situation where learning Tamil or knowing Tamil has become an elite status or situation in the community. So you could see how the influence of Tamil being layered onto the Sinhala language as well. So I'm going to go into the feature sets that we have looked at. This is purely AI work. I didn't have time to go into the details of it. So the claim is that Sinhala has split ergative behavior. I could probably read some of this because I speak the language. The TE or T phrase that being marked here only appears in the past tense. That's why they call it the split ergative. I ate rice, mama bat kava is a simple past tense. But the same thing could be said, mata bat kapuna. So literally to me, rice eaten was, or I had eaten rice. So this is that split ergativity that we have seen. And here also we can see mata bat kamati, I like rice. So we in Tamil also, I don't know if we can really say this. I mentioned this in the chat some time back. we have this notion of Vinay, say Vinay and say part Vinay. Anything can be converted from one to the other. So maybe this is an influence of Tamil. We don't know. Nan soru unden, soru ennal unnappatadu. Both are correct sentences in Tamil. I don't know if that really fits into the ergativity. Please correct me if I'm wrong there, but we can discuss that later on. Sure.
I like rice தமிழ்ல சொல்லணும்னா எனக்கு சாதம் பிடிக்கும்.
பிடிக்கும்.
எனக்குன்றது to me rice இது வந்து dative noun ஆக்குறதுன்னு சொல்லுவாங்க. It's
Okay.
not ergative சொல்லுவாங்க. Because நான் சாதம் பிடிக்கும் சொல்ல மாட்டேன் இல்லையா?
சொல்ல மாட்டேன். Yeah,
எனக்கு
yeah.
அது it becomes a dative case. So அது very
Right.
unique. I want this ன்னு சொல்லும்போது எனக்கு இது பிடிக்கும் அப்படின்னு சொல்றதுன்னு வந்து it's sort of I don't know whether it's unique, but it is not ergative. That I know for
Okay.
sure.
Okay.
But
Okay.
இங்க வந்து I like rice வந்து மாட்டேன்றது எனக்குன்னு உண்டாகுமா? Does it become எனக்கு? மாட்டேன்ற singular word.
Yes, yes. எனக்குன்னு தான் வரும். Yes.
அது தமிழினுடைய இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஸ் தான் நான் சொல்லுவேன். இப்போ
Probably.
சரியா
Yes.
பார்க்கும்போது
Yeah.
நம்ம வந்து நாமினேட்டிவ் உபயோகப்படுத்த மாட்டோம். இந்த ஐ இந்த மாதிரி சொல்லும்போது ஐ லைக் ரைஸ்ன்றத வந்து நான் அரிசி லைக் பண்ண மாட்டோம். எனக்குன்னு தான்
Right.
சொல்லுவோம் இல்லையா?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
that is
Right.
a dative person சொல்லுவாங்க. But anyway, நீங்க
Okay.
சொல்லுங்க. This is an interesting. எனக்கு வந்து இது தமிழினுடைய இன்ஃப்ளூயன்ஸ் மாதிரி தெரியுது.
Okay. Okay.
நீங்க அதுக்கு அடியில் எழுதியிருக்கீங்களா? To me, rice is liked.
Yes.
To me, the literal translation will be I like rice is எனக்கு சாதம் பிடிக்கும். To me,
But again, எனக்கு சாதம் பிடிக்கும். Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's how it is. Mata bath kamati.
good. அப்படின்னா சிங்கிளிஷ் ஈஸியா தமிழ்ல டிரான்ஸ்லேட் பண்ணிடலாம்.
Yeah.
சொல்லுங்க.
Okay. So when it comes to numerical classifiers, it's pretty straightforward. It doesn't have it, just like Tamil. So tuna minihek, they denek, 2 persons, tuna pot, pot is a book. So they don't have it pretty much. And the historical note that I got as an answer here is that it is unique, just like Tamil. There doesn't seem to be a substrate influence. And in the numerical one, I wanted to mention something here that I read, which I didn't capture here on the slide, which I found interesting, is that when it comes to counting from 11 to 19, in Tamil, we go 11, 12, 13. So the 10 comes first and the 1, 2, 3 up to 9 comes after. In Sinhalese, interestingly, 11, 12, and 15 are swapped or flipped, meaning 11 is ekolaha, that is eka comes first and loha 10 after the 10, dolaha, and then that is the 12. 13 is dahatuna, 10 and 3, and then 14 is dahatara, and 15 is pahalua, 5 comes first and then the 10. Those are I found it very interesting in that they mentioned that in one of the papers when analyzing these syntaxes, and we don't know how this happened, but there are some variations as well for sure. It's not a direct one-to-one correspondence is what I can say. in gender, it pretty much behaves like Tamil. So what I found out here is that Miniha, Gaheni is a feminine woman, Pota is a neuter noun, and then Ea is he or she, Eka is it. So it's pretty similar to Tamil. Adu, avan, aval, puttaham. This is Miniha, man. I don't know. Yeah, we can say
Manishan.
Manishan, Manidi, or
இது quick question.
sure.
தமிழ்ல வந்து அவன், இவன், உவன், there are 3 இல்லைங்களா?
Shuttu, yeah. Ahachuttu, yeah.
அது
Shuttu.
மாதிரி சிங்கிளிஷ்ல இருக்குங்களா?
Oya means avan, Ea, that's for sure. Oya
Because
is no. I
in
have to look into
literary
that. It's a
Tamil,
good question. It's a good
in
question. I'll
literary
look into.
Tamil, we distinguish between the person who is immediately in front of you,
Yeah.
and within an earshot, and very far away. So there
Yes.
are 3 distance characteristics, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
அது somewhat unique to Tamil நினைக்கிறேன். But அந்த மாதிரி மற்ற languages like English doesn't have, German
Right.
doesn't have, Sanskrit doesn't have. So I'm just curious.
I will definitely follow up on that one. It should be an easier find for me. I can even ask some of my friends.
Singlish friends, hopefully.
Singlish friends. Yes. Yes. So I just wanted to touch upon the Dravidian influence. I found a PhD thesis done by someone on comparing the 2 languages. I have attached a summary chart towards the end of the presentation in the appendix, but it goes on to a lot of details. There are quite a lot of similarity between Tamil and Sinhala, but again, there are some differences as well, quite striking differences as well. Loss of aspiration is another one that we have noticed. And grammatical gender is another one. Indo-Aryan languages, we know that Gujarati, Hindi, and all of those have it, but in Sinhalese, we don't have it. I'll go show the appendix later on. So I just wanted to highlight that it also has influence from Dravidian as well. So can we really say that it is only just Tamil and Sinhala, or is there another substrate language? Is the question. That's what I wanted to come back to. Probably on the split ergative part, we could draw a connection between the Magadhi Prakrit influenced by Munda languages because of the Adivasi, the ancient population picking up or creolizing the migrant language. Then also we have the Dravidian layers that come into the island. So it is a mixed bag again. Where do we actually draw the line to distinguish from a classification standpoint? They have already agreed that Sinhalese is definitely Indo-Aryan and does not belong to Dravidian. But if you go down to the language features, we could see how it is all mixed and mingled. So that's the interesting find that we have, even extending the periphery of Peggy Mohan's work, I guess. Somebody could take this up as a PhD topic and look at the languages and probably prove that point in a more systematic way.
If I may just add one more comment. Oh,
Sure.
let me finish. Let you finish this. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is pretty much a summary, and I also try to include the genetic correlation. I slightly mentioned about this. The Adivadi population or the ancient, Veda population, they are very different. Rajaya, probably you know how to interpret this one. This is again,
Yeah,
it's an
that is
AI
exactly
summary.
what Tamil Nadu looks like.
Okay.
M2 is the oldest mitochondrial DNA found in India. And of
Okay.
course, you see that U2I, which is I stands for India, U2 mitochondrial DNA is found basically in India. The Raki Gargi lady was of
Uh-huh.
U2B, 2. And of course, Irlar in Tamil Nadu have the highest number of U2 subclades, if you will. So they're very closely related to Irulars of Nilgiri district.
Very good. Interesting. Okay. So, yeah, so as I said, in summary, we have probably three different ethnic groups in Sri Lanka in terms of genetic variations. The Vada people forming the unique one, sort of the outlier, and then the majority are the Sinhalese and Tamils with a mix of all the other gene pool that's available in India. But again, the ratios might vary. But again, an important note is that Sinhalese people have more Dravidian genes than Indo-Aryan genes. So that's something of an interesting fact, which Sinhalese are not trying to, or they are having a hard time chewing.
If I may make a comment, genetically, the Sri Lankan population, there are many very nice papers that have come out. And there was one important class paper came out just a few months ago. So it paints a picture, sort of a blend of people. And that's what you see. And Mahavamsa, or 4th century AD,
Yeah.
CE text, describes Vijaya for his 50 people. He goes to Pandya kingdom to find wives for his generals.
Yes.
So the taking brides from Pandyas was a tradition during the early part of the formation of Sri Lankan kingdom. So,
Right.
and that accurately pictures father tongue
Yes.
and motherland. And the
Yes.
motherland is really Pandya kingdom to some extent.
Right.
And that is
But
why you have a blend of the cultures that you see there, the language too.
yeah, in the same myth, before he brings the Pandyan wife, as soon as he comes to the island, he marries an Aboriginal woman called Kuveni. That's probably the Adivasi or the Aboriginal Vada person.
That's a political marriage.
Yes.
Because
Okay.
in olden days, it was common for kings to marry competing daughters from competing emperors in order to maintain peace across their
Peace.
boundaries. So
Right.
I'm
Right.
just speculating. But that tradition has been there even in other cultures too. This is a very nice presentation. We have a very complex subject you need to deal with. Thus far, and all the way up to chapter 6, we dealt with blend of two languages. Here, you had to deal with blend of three. And my one quick comment is, Elu, there is a Ellalan of 1st century BCE who ruled Sri Lanka.
Yes.
He was supposed to have come from Tamil Nadu, supposed to be a Chola prince or something like that. But of course, there is an Ellalan is how he is described in Mahavamsam.
Right.
And Ellalan's stupa, which is just outside of the Anuradha archaeological complex, and
Right.
of course, and it is now renamed as Dakshina Stupa for whatever political reasons. But that stupa is supposed to hold the residues of Ellalan, whom Tamil people have called him as a Manunidi Soran, right? Of
Right.
course, Manu didn't come into existence when he was alive. He came into alive much later, 300-400 years later. But anyway, does the Elu relate to Ellalan by any chance? Because in
I
Mahavamsa,
did not come across anything like that.
because in Mahavamsa he's called Ellalan, and
Yeah,
of course in Tamil text there's no reference to Ellalan at all. And the guess is he spoke an Elu language, therefore they call him Ellalan or something like that. I'm just speculating.
it could be. I did not come across anything.
If you could dig a little bit there, that'll be
Yeah,
helpful.
I will. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think
Other
that's all I
question?
have. I'll quickly go to the Maldivian section as well. This is one page. Mani, I was very much interested in the Maldivian side of things, so I thought I'll dig a little bit into that. I think the last sentence here is very much interesting. We don't know how the origin story went there as well, but it definitely has a lot of resemblance to Sinhalese. They might have been colonized by Aryans at the same time, and they grew parallelly, or people from Sri Lanka went to Maldives. We don't know that. But this language is still living, and Sinhalese is also still living, and hence there have been a lot of work in the comparative linguistic space on comparing these two. So I put one paper in my references section here on that one. So I think it's this one. There is one about Maldivian one, this one, J.B. Dissanayake. So you can go through them if you are interested. I didn't read all of them. I just made a high-level reading to get the context of it and try to paint a picture here. But this is a very interesting topic that I may pick it up later on. In the appendix, I have put summaries of that PhD paper that I mentioned about is this one. Harold Tambu, Sinhala and Tamil, a case of contact-induced restructuring. It's a very nicely written paper. It goes into elaborate details about what the world language comparison feature sets are, and it goes into every single one of them and iterates them over and says out of 64 we have 15 find, out of 60 15 we have 12 finds, and things like that. It's a very interesting paper which I want to read thoroughly later on, but I've put a summary of that in case anybody was interested in what the shared notions are and where they differ. So these are all teasers for anybody interested. And I'll stop there. We can take up questions. I think we are almost over time.
Thank you, Vahis. Questions for the speaker? Or comments?
Vaheesan, as you speak about the Sinhalese language,
Oh,
right?
I had one question, like you mentioned Yaka and Naga, right? Naga is from
Sorry,
Nagaland? or
Bama is already asking
Oh.
something. Bama, can you be louder a little bit?
Oh, okay. So you had mentioned like when you are comparing the grammatical features of Sinhalese, right? You
Yeah.
mentioned about the gender and then the numerical classifiers and the ergativity pattern, right? So and you also had mentioned that it has more resemblance to Tamil. So you said
Yeah.
because Tamil and Sinhalese are from the same substrate language, which was spoken by the Vedas, so the grammatical
No.
structure is borrowed from there.
No. I think it's more of a later influence. So that's why the gray box that I had in the diagram, we don't really know how to draw that connection between the Aboriginals and Elu-speaking community and Tamils, because
Mhm.
their language is pretty much dead. What they currently speak, so it's more of an inference that they have. So from what they speak currently is definitely Sinhalese, a version of Sinhalese, but what they originally spoke, we don't know. So that language is dead. So we are not able to do any direct correlation from the Aboriginal original language perspective.
Mhm. That is the difficulty for any language, right? Because the
Yeah,
substrate language is mostly dead.
right,
So we
right.
cannot, but whatever we have covered over the chapters of Peggy's book, it was more like we had this kind of relationship established. The grammatical structure was borrowed from mostly from the substrate language. So that's why my intention, my question
Yeah, I think
was
her
in
her
that regard.
examples were mostly living languages. She was able to talk to them. She was able to find literary evidence and things like that. But in the case of Sri Lanka, other than Sinhalese and Tamil, we don't have anything else available. Even the
Mhm.
Elu language or Hela is a proto-Sinhala language. It doesn't exist anymore. I wanted to mention about this in the presentation. I forgot. There was a revival period of that as well, which is very fascinating and interesting when it comes to the historical side of the language. So just like how we had Maramarayadigal, the Tamil Tani Tamil Iyakam, they also had a purification of Sinhala to remove
Mhm.
Pali and Sanskrit from Sinhala and go back to Elu. And this happened in the
Mhm.
early 19th century. So in the
Mhm.
1920s, I believe, a person called Kumaratunga, Munidasa Kumaratunga, was very active in that space, and he also recruited a linguist, D. Alves. I have put that reference on the sheet here. Um, Together, they tried to revive the Elu language, but it didn't really pick up much. It pretty much died off.
Okay. I have two more questions. Maybe Sridharan can ask this question. I'll come back in the next round.
Sure.
Okay.
No, mine was very simple because like they mentioned in the Naga, right? Is that from
Yeah.
Nagaland? Are they from Nagaland?
We cannot say they are from Nagaland, but there are literary references to Nagas everywhere in Tamil for sure. And there are mentions of them in the Sinhala inscriptions as well. So we know for sure that there lived a community called Nagas, but were they very different? Were they very similar to the other Vadas living there? We don't know because we currently don't have any evidence of them living other than the inscriptions and the literary evidence.
Thank you.
If I may make a quick remark, Nagas are highly referenced in the Buddhist literature of 3rd century BCE. And if you go to Sanchi, you'll find Naga presentation in that stupa quite extensively.
Mhm.
So Nagas were considered a class of people who existed in that part of the country in the ancient times. And so worship, and those folks worship Nagas. And of course, now that sort of a faith existed all over India for whatever reason, but we don't have a well-documented information about it. If you go to any Tamil Nadu temple, you'll find Naga stones outside of the temple. And the reason why they are there is there were people in Tamil Nadu and elsewhere too who used to worship Nagas, but instead of throwing old gods away, they kept them within the prahara of the temple. So
Right.
it's an ancient tradition that existed in India. And so, and it may be, and it is, they're referenced very heavily in Buddhist literature. And the Nagas may be people who were perhaps Buddhists or perhaps who were not Buddhists, who were being converted. And that might be the references here, if you will.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
there
sir.
is a word called Ila Naga again. Ila also mentioned there and also Naga coined together. I don't know if it is in the excavations in India or Sri Lanka. Somewhere in the excavations they have found Ila Naga mentioned.
You might find some information from Mahavamsa, the 4th century text, because that
Right.
describes all kinds of people.
But there is a general belief as well that Nagas were the ancient tribes. Like, is it only a myth or is there any evidence, like archaeological
I
or
don't think
genetic
Nagas
evidence?
is a myth, but definitely there's a lot of myth in Mahavamsa for sure. It's all over the place. The person who wrote it is Mahanama Therar, a Buddhist monk in 5th century AD, who is quoting things that happened thousands of years ago, saying that he copied from another book, Deepavansa, which is a precursor to Mahavamsa. And why I say that it is all over the place is because even the roots of the arrival of Vijaya is mishmashed. He says a lot about Vangadesam and the northeastern Indian subcontinent, but then some of the place names that he mentions in the text are found in Gujarat. So still they are mixed about whether they came from Gujarat or whether they came from Magadhan Empire. So it's, yeah, definitely he didn't have any idea about geography.
But Vijaya's time, which is about
543 BC.
Yeah. And at that time, Buddha was not yet known because 581 is considered Buddha's Enlightenment Day, right? So that Buddhism hadn't become a major religion until a couple of centuries later. So
Right.
Vijaya, when he came down to Sri Lanka, we don't know what religion he was. He was not a Buddhist at that time.
Correct. He was not. And he adopted Buddhism, and that's where Mahinda and Sanghamitta, Ashokan's daughter and son, were influential in bringing the Bodhi tree to Sri Lanka.
Yeah. That is 300 years
That
later.
is 300 later.
250 years
Yes,
later.
yes.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah.
Just observation.
She has a question.
Yeah, I have
Excellent.
an observation. Even in astronomy, as far as I know, they pray to Rahu Kedu, which is the Naga shapes of a head or
Yeah.
a body.
Pambin Val, Pambin
Yeah.
Tale. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Good. Oh, that's a good point.
Yes.
Then somewhere I read that even Kerala, there has been Naga worshipping going way back. So probably that's something that
Still it is there.
existed.
Still it is there.
Till it is there.
Yeah.
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 There are in all the Kerala
In
temples
Tamil
are
Nadu
most
also
like
you find it.
Bama,
Go
you can
ahead, Aya.
continue.
Yeah, please go on.
No, this is quite common in Kerala.
There's known as Naga
As well as
Panchami.
in
There's a festival இருக்குல்ல?
Naga
Nagapattinam is the
Nagapandami
one
வந்துட்டு
comes in Manimegalai.
Yeah, and even in my family, there is like one of my relatives group. They name their first son or first daughter as Nagalakshmi, Nagarajan. They go in that order only, something related with Naga. So that
Okay.
tradition is there, and Nagatamman is worshipped everywhere in Tamil Nadu. You'll find
Yeah,
lot of
Naganathan is a
Kuthukoil as
very common
Nagatamman.
last name in Sri Lanka too.
We have
Naganathan,
one
yeah.
Naga in our audience. She can
Oh yeah,
come and
there
answer
is.
something. நீங்க ஏதாவது
Yes,
சொல்றீங்களா?
Nagaraj.
Nagalakshmi, I think.
இல்ல நாகராஜன் அவர் பேர் நாகராஜ்
அப்படியா,
நாராயணன் அவர் பேர்.
Nagarajan. Okay.
Rama, you had
yeah,
more questions? Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
no
Naga.
questions. Yeah, I myself, my name is named after Naga god, like Pambalaman is the name. So there is no tradition as such in our family, but I'm late born to my parents after 10 or 11 years. After they prayed to that god, I born, and they named me Nagaraj. So that
Okay.
is the story for my name. Yeah.
If you find anything more about this Naga people or anything, please post in the WhatsApp group. That'll be helpful. It'll be a good.
Yes.
So your discussion
Just
has
to add,
actually opened up more questions, really.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
That I guess that's the whole point, I guess.
Yeah,
I wanted
that
to
is good.
achieve.
That is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
invoke some
Actually,
interest.
Nagaraj, Naga is doing, like, he's very much interested in languages. You should tell more about your language hunch or language search. He is learning Japanese, if I am right, Naga, right? He he got interested in the connection
Yes.
between Tamil and Japanese. So
Yes, Bama.
he's
So for
learning.
past 1 year, I am learning Japanese. By after learning Japanese, I was well into the similarities which we share with Japanese. Apart from the tones, since we both are native languages, I could see there are a number of similarities once I started learning one by one. So also after that, I started to appreciate Chinese language as well. Like I could see a lot of not I would not say it's a Tamil connection, but I would say there is a connection I could sense from these languages. So that that is driving me to learn Tamil more, I would say. So I'm learning Tamil grammar deeply for some time also.
The Japanese and Tamil have very many grammatical features that are almost
Yes.
identical.
Yes.
And in fact, one of my classmates who was assigned to Tokyo for 3 years, he said he found it very easy to pick up Japanese because he knew Tamil, while his American friends had tough time learning Japanese. Because it's exactly the opposite, right? We speak in subject, object, verb,
Yeah.
and English it is subject, verb, object.
Object,
And of
yeah.
course, we use postposition versus preposition. That's the same thing. And Japanese is also agglutinative, just like Tamil is. And there's no conjunction in Japanese too. So these are advantages if you're learning Japanese. And of course, they are different languages. They're not the same. And Turkish language has the same features, grammatical features
Yes,
as
yeah. So
Yes.
I recently started reading. So I started learning reading the papers of Susumu Ono sir as well. Like I could see a lot of things he have also mentioned. So yeah.
He is the first one to establish the relation, right, between the Japanese language and Tamil
No,
in the
first
80s
one,
itself.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
correct. But before that, Caldwell himself have called out there is some connectivity between Dravidian languages as well as the Japanese language. So he is the first person. After that, many people have. After that, the predominant person is
Contributed.
Susumu Ono.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. But recently, one more thing I just want to highlight. Like I found extraordinary material to learn Japanese through Tamil. I really thought there is no such books or something to learn Japanese through Tamil, I would say. So, but recently I came to know that I think the publisher is Institute of Asian Studies. They have published 3 parts where we can learn Japanese through Tamil, and English is played as a linking language. So that is actually giving me more insights between these two languages. Yeah,
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you for
So,
those comments.
yeah. Thank you all.
Bama, you
yeah,
had
coming.
questions or?
Yeah, I had questions. This question might be more to Muttarasanaya because this is from the genetic thing. And you had briefly made the comment that this way, similar to the Indian geography, the Sri Lankan geography also has the Vedas. So, but I couldn't completely get what you had mentioned. Like we have this ASI, ANI kind of thing, right? Is there any categorization of the DNA map over there in Sri Lanka? The Vedas are the ancient tribes, right?
Yes, if I remember right, you can chime in, but definitely, if I remember, they do have affinity to the Andaman population. So I think pretty much it's aligning. Rajaya, please go ahead.
Oh, it's the Veda people, right?
The people, yes.
Veda is actually Vader. The other
Yeah,
Vedas.
yeah.
Mathi சொல்றது. There are some haplogroup D among the Vedas that have been found. So the people in Andamans are D3 at D3B or something like that. But we have not found
is
any
there
D in Tamil Nadu though. But we find C M130, but we also find a fair number of C5, which are derivatives of Virumandi Devarnuடைய lineage.
Right.
is there any comment on the like mitochondrial DNA? Is there any
Yeah,
known results?
the notes Vahi showed was there's a fair number of M2 among the Vedas. And you find M2s in India, I mean in Tamil Nadu, primarily among the tribals. And the other one he noted was U2I. I actually is an abbreviation by the scholars to use U2 found in India, which consists of U2. There are many subclades within that, and that is also found in among many of the trouble. As a ballpark figure, this is a good number to remember. Any Indian, of course, everybody here, the probability that you're an M is about 40%. The probability you're an R is about 40%. The probability you're a U is about 20%, approximately, rough number. That will be true for any Indian in India. So all Indians fall into these three mitochondrial haplogroups.
And
They're
Sri Lankans
subclades.
also Sri
Enema?
Lankans also have this. Sri Lankans
Same
also
thing.
have the
Same thing. It'll be the
same.
same thing. I don't think they're genetically
அப்ப
Sri
why
Lankans are no different from the Indians.
அப்ப Y haplogroup மட்டும் why is it so different? Like D is, if I remember correctly, D is even a haplogroup before C, right?
No,
There
after.
was something
After. It's a
after.
derivative after C.
Okay. So அப்ப வந்து அங்க இன்னும் வந்து they haven't found any ancient DNA. Is that the way we can take it? There might be a ancient haplogroup over there, right? We don't know.
Well,
Right.
the trouble is the method for extracting ancient DNA has so far been done only with ancient from bones of temperate climate. In warm weather, this is what the story goes, that the DNA breaks down into smaller fragments. It is there. So if you think about it, the following, it's a huge molecule. It breaks down to approximately 1,000 nucleotides in temperate climate. In India, it'll break it down to 100. So between 1,000, imagine a puzzle, giant puzzle, where the pieces are about the size of my hand compared to puzzles where the pieces are of the size of rice particles. Now, so jigsaw puzzle, putting that back together will be far more difficult. I don't think it is far away. There are enough data scientists, there are enough smart people, they'll figure this out. I bet it'll take place within the next 10 years. And so we might be able to get that ancient DNA from India going forward. What they have been successful with was with mitochondrial DNA from Putnam. I think that's a 2,000-year-old DNA, and also some places in Tibet, I think, Tibet or Sikkim, in the Himalayan region, where they were able to extract the mitochondrial DNA. The difference is in each cell, there's only one molecule of Y, but there'll be hundreds of mitochondrial DNA. So when you have a large population, large number, and also it's a smaller molecule, it's only 37 kilobases, while this is in 2 megabase, right, which is a much larger, 3 orders of magnitude bigger. And so they've been able to get mitochondrial DNA about 50% of the time. So even though the ancient DNA is there, I'm not sure whether they made enough effort to get at it, because these labs are just gearing up. Maybe in the next 5 years, we'll see some of those results. You know, the Adichanallur skulls and many that have been found at Kiradi and elsewhere, they do have mitochondrial DNA. They can at least get at whether maybe they'll discover M1 there. The discovery is not so much with M because of Peggy Morgan's book, if you will. Most people who came into India were men. So in terms of women genealogy, we have pretty uniform structure right through India. There's not a great deal of difference. There are some small differences, but in terms of why, there's a fair amount of differences. That's an important point that's
So
been
as
explored
we
scientifically.
discuss about the migration, right? So in
Right.
India, we know we know the major migrations. So does that the same hold for Sri Lanka, or they have other migrations as well?
You can think about Sri Lanka. This is how I think about it based on what I have read. It was occupied by ancient folks, just like it's in Tamil Nadu and South
First
India,
Indians.
ancient AASI. And then folks came in. The folks who came in went from Tamil Nadu to there, and also they went from Orissa region to later, but also they came from the western part, from Gujarat region too. So you have a blend of two different cultures, because Odisha genomic content is quite different. Odisha has influence of Munda languages, if you will. There is a eastern community too that came in there. And of course, from Gujarat, it is more of Indo-Aryan. So they have the blend of those two mixed together with Tamil migration, if you will, and with the ancient folks that existed there. So they have a blend of those genomes in that place.
So that's why, like in my original diagram, Bama, like you have arrows coming from two sides. One is the Dravidian influence or the Tamil influence. The other one is the Prakrit, Sanskrit, the Indo-Aryan influence. But they both came into Sri Lanka roughly around a few centuries apart, I guess.
Okay. This Gujarat is this influence is new to me. Like, is it only for trade, or is it a political, like some conquering, or it's political boundaries, enhancing the political boundary?
I'm not aware of anything in particular about, other than the mentioning of Mahavamsa having place names in Gujarat. But any other direct relationships with the Gujarat, I didn't come across. In the later centuries, of course, later on, we would have definitely had trade or other stuff. But in the olden ages, I don't know what was there.
Because that is interesting to me, because even the Velian migration, when we relate the Velian migration in Tamil Nadu from the Sangam literature, right? The mention of Velis, Iringo, we always relate to the Gujarat region. So is there any, is it related with the Sangam period?
So, I mean, there is a thought that the author of Mahavamsa pretty much jammed every historical element into one book, trying to incorporate everything. And why he associated the Vijaya story, or why he incorporated the Vijaya story, one of the arguments is that this is put forward by Professor Indrapala in his book, is that every clan or kingship wanted to hail from a greater power or source of influence. And just like how some of the later traditions in Tamil Nadu space drew from Mahabharata, Surya Vamsam, Chandra Vamsam, and so on, Sri Lankans also wanted to have some sort of an Aryan root, and hence he incorporated the Vijaya story. But it may be that Vijaya never showed up. It could be just a trade clan that came through with a Prakati Magadhi language, Prakrit, which then had this story invented and the language formed and became Sinhalese eventually. That's another narration.
Yeah, that could also be possible. Thanks.
Okay. If you have more questions, you could communicate via the WhatsApp group. That'll be the best thing. Shall we bring the session to a closure?
Yeah, I think we can.
There are no objections. Bama, you're
I
going to...
think there was a question. There was a question in the chat. Let me read that question.
Please do.
I missed that question. Yeah. Mr. Madi had asked that question. What is the base of Sinhalese scripts? He had one more question because it's take this question
Interesting.
first.
Yeah. The reason I put, okay, so let me quickly, is my diagram being shared now or no?
It is.
Yeah,
It
your
is?
screen is
Okay.
still visible. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
let
you
me
can move
go.
to the slide what you are interested, but we see.
Okay.
I'm
So
seeing
let
via
me go
phone,
back
so
to my original diagram. Okay. Are you seeing my diagram now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
So the Mahayana influence with Sanskrit, the reason for me to bring that up is particularly because of the script. Thank you for asking that question. Because all along up until the Pali influence, we see only the Prakrit language with Brahmi inscriptions or Brahmi character sets. But then later on, because of the Sanskrit influence and the phonology that they wanted to incorporate from Sanskrit into the language, they pick up the Grantha characters. So the present day Sinhalese language is very close to the script of Pallava, the Grantha. So that is
Yeah,
the transitions you will see, like in
but when I see it visually, it is more closer to Odissi, right? Because the
correct. That's
scripts,
the Prakrit influence, right?
today's script is more.
Today's script is closer to Odisha.
Yeah, that's my visual similarity.
Okay.
That's the visual
I
similarity
don't know.
I'm
I haven't
seeing.
looked into it, but I found this in an article, and that's why I decided to put that one to make that point clear, because the evolution of the script has also changed along the way from what has existed in the past. They
Okay.
definitely
Here's
had a
one.
closer relationship with Pallava dynasty as well.
Yeah, his one more question is, okay, maybe he add this reference. My question is why only Single is adapted to Buddhism, not Tamils?
Oh no,
Maybe
Tamils were, a lot of them were Buddhists as well.
actually,
There is a whole book dedicated to, not
misnomer
only
or
one book, there are several books actually dedicated to. In fact, look up the work by Dr. Tyagaraja, and it's called, I'm blanking out on the name of the book, Kandarodai Civilization. So it is about 300 BCE, I think, or even before that. We have archaeological evidence in Kandarodai
Jaffna area.
civilization in the Jaffna area
Jaffna.
Right.
Yeah.
to have Buddhism, and a lot of Tamils were Buddhists.
Yeah.
One thing that I
Even
haven't found is the Jain influence. How come we don't have any Jain stuff in Sri Lanka? Is something that I wanted to explore. I couldn't find any light in that direction.
Because I can tell you that
Sure.
Jains were not interested in spreading their faith, but the Buddhists were interested in spreading the wisdom of Buddha. There was a different mindset. That's why you won't see Jain temples of antiquity, but you'll find Buddhist shrines of antiquity. Even in
Interesting.
India, the most ancient sites are Buddhists. They're not
Right.
Jains, although even though Jain faith goes back at least 400 years before Buddha, but there are no Jain ancient temples, if you will.
So they were never institutionalized, is another way to say that.
They
correct.
believed in spreading good word, but they didn't adopt an institutionalization. Like Buddha, the Buddhist scholars, they conducted a conference, remember?
Yeah.
First conference, the second conference, third conference. There's no similarity in terms of the Jains at all.
Yeah, the sanghas and the
Right. And
right.
of course, the first Sangha that was really to capture Buddha's words into text. And so
Correct.
at that time, the Hindus didn't write their stuff down. I mean, Vedic Hindus, they only recited it orally.
Yes.
The idea of capturing information down on paper is a Buddhist tradition. That is why Mahavamsa was written. There is no equivalent of Mahavamsa, a historical document of that kind. There are poetries written in Tamil. There are, but not a historical document.
Right.
Anyway, the question I was going to ask was, before we finish off, what is the earliest literary work that has come out in Sinhalese language, meaning a poetry or a story or things of that nature?
Poetry, I can definitely get back to you on that, because there are some papers that I saw about Elu language poetry. So probably there is some something to dig up there. That could be the earliest literary evidence for Sinhala.
That would be interesting because in India, except in Tamil Nadu, where the ancient poets wrote about life and everything else, and in the north, whenever they wrote only about God or ideas related to God. They didn't write about ordinary peoples. I could be wrong, but on the other hand, native languages like Maithili or Bhojpuri, they have poetry about common people's life. Love poems, for example, in Bhojpuri are very well known. But so that type of a tradition seemed to be native to India, but once the religious folks came, then it became all religious texts. So that distinction will be interesting to compare between Sri Lankan history and Tamil history.
I can definitely look into that.
I just wanted to mention here, like when we say like Jainism had low footprints, in 5th chapter, actually, Peggy is mentioning that those Vratyas, they followed some of the qualities. And one such quality she's mainly mentioning is wanting the lightest possible ecological footprint.
Yes.
She
yes.
says, yeah. So they wanted they wanted to have a lightest possible ecological footprint. So that gives maybe that is relating to why Jainism had very low footprints or very less teachings written. Maybe that could be one of the quality of the Vratyas. I'm just very curious in linking Vratyas with Jainism, Buddhism, all those qualities. Just wanted to mention it here.
It could be. It could very well be, because they were all about detachment and gaining making the next life better. So they were not bothered about the current life, for the most part.
Maybe.
And also they are not interested, they don't travel overseas, right? That's one of the reason often given in all this Jain forums, saying that the Jainism did not spread.
That comes with
No.
the Hindus.
No, even with the Jains, yeah.
Is
They
it?
don't track, yeah. My own colleague, he says, he's a Jain, and he says like this: if they travel outside the country, right, which happens in today's world, so they cannot be a Jain monk anymore in their life. So they cannot attend, they cannot do that Salgena, Nonbu, and anything of that sort. Becoming a monk is not possible. Monk and
Maybe
further a teacher.
Bama, maybe that may be after Jainism has adopted more of Vedic culture into them, because now Jainism is almost like they follow all the Vedic
Yeah,
Vedic
that is also
traditions
true.
like Shankara Narayana Puja. Everything is into that.
And
Maybe
even
after that they would
Mahavira, Mahavira also they associate with the Krishna's reincarnation. So that is also there.
Yeah, that gets us into another topic.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe we should.
Looks
I
like
have one final question for Vagis, because in the childhood days I had listened to Sri Lankan radio where during that time even All India Radio had very good Tamil, like Pechu Tamil was very good. What
Yeah.
is the scenario now? Is it like the one in Tamil Nadu where you have
Sun TV
so
and
much
Vijay
of
TV.
mix of?
That's it. You have the answer. It's flipped.
Okay. Okay. So let's, because Vijay is still a popular star over there, right?
No, Vijay TV, I mean, yeah.
No,
Like
I
cinema
also, I
has,
had been to Sri Lanka 2 years before, and
yeah,
some college kids asked me this question: Have you met Vijay?
right.
Okay, so let's conclude
Those
this
were
one
college
because we are
girls, right? Not college boys.
both boys and girls. Okay, yeah, like this was a very interesting session. And thanks to Vaheesan because he could only do the job what he was asked to do, but he took the extra effort in not only narrating the birth of Nepali language, but more than that, he had talked about the Sinhalese language and which we could relate it very much better. Thanks, Vaheesan, for your voluntary act on both these languages. And it was a very engaging session today. So like all other sessions, it was very engaging and informative. Thanks to all the participants who were here. And thanks to Subbu for doing the live streaming and helping out in other activities. Subbu is from RMRL. And then next week, Mr. Pardimal will talk about the 8th chapter of this book, which would be the last chapter of this book. And further, we have one more session by Peggy Mohan on November 15th. We'll have those announcements shortly. But whomever has whatever questions related to this book, please put it down in the WhatsApp group. We are collating those questions and we'll be asking, having Peggy to answer those questions. So please put down your questions in the WhatsApp group. See you all next week, same time, 9 o'clock. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.